Do you two have any pets that sometimes jump in on your virtual conversations?
Not me.
There you go.
I did. I used to use our dog, particularly when she was a puppy. When I was doing the Zoom mates call, so I was calling in during COVID, in between the window therapy times, and our dog used to feature heavily in meeting the elders and joining our conversations, which was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very
There
sweet.
are times when I'm more tolerant. I don't want the dog to bark because then I have to mute out or something like that. But half the time I leave the cat wandering around and the dog is under my desk on my toes. Because 9 a.m. in the morning just seems to be a very quiet, relaxing time. It closes the windows so that there's no beeping of trucks or barking of dogs. And but sometimes, and I've said this probably twice now on live stream, that there was one day that I specifically chose people who live in different time zones around the planet. So I did have a different person in Malaysia who said, I did something new today. I put on my makeup at midnight for this show. And I hear that it's good as you age to try new things. So she was quite animated and excited. And I thought, hoy, what is she going to be like tomorrow? And the cat jumps up and here we are just going in and out of beautiful dialects and people talking about their backgrounds of people. And it was all because it was in March was International Women's Day. So I had people around the planet and up jumps the cat and I hear this kitty and I'm going, oh no, it sounds the same in every accent. Kitty.
That's so
and Cayman
true.
was, the tails going back and forth during it. And I thought, this is just fun. I was grateful that so many of those people were willing to jump in on that day. It made it exciting for me. And yes, we talked about aging. I love it when people talk about their own aging, but it's not creaks and groans. It's about, I'm so glad that I talked about this with my kids because I really learned it from, watching maybe a grandparent who just seemed to be, I don't know, content maybe with every stage of life. They found contentment and they found good. And so I'm just really trying to, mimic that and be that kind of person as I age with my kids. Stories like that. But I specifically hunted down Maury. Like I was in the bushes and trying to just, pop a few more hints of going, we'll do this anytime that works for you. Maury, have you had your morning breakfast? It is close to dinner time for us.
I've had my coffee. I'm actually not very well today. I've woken up yesterday quite unwell, but I've got a very energetic spirit, so I can push through a lot of things.
You're pulling it off well, Maury.
Thank you. I'm getting off camera. So I've had coffee. I haven't really felt like having breakfast yet, but I'm not hankering. But when I do, I will be having toast with a smidgen of a eggplant cassendi paste, and then I'll be having avocado with fresh tomato. That's what I'll be having this morning.
That sounds delicious. Avocado toast is quite popular, but the eggplant intrigues me. Okay, Judy, I guess we're talking about food. Any particular food plans in your mind when he talks about that? Or do you remember your last avocado toast?
Actually, I don't think I do. If I'm in Sandpoint, Idaho, I have avocado toast. There's a really good organic cafe there that serves avocado toast. But
Sandpoint. I'll keep that in mind.
When I was 19 and I married and moved to LA, there was an avocado tree in the backyard, and you could not escape that property. If you dropped by the front door, you got a grocery sack full of avocados, because that thing was huge. It must have been 70, 80 feet. It was a very mature avocado tree. So we handed out avocados in grocery sacks. So
wow.
I probably know more ways to eat avocado.
It's funny because I worked at an avocado orchard when I was traveling in North Queensland. We're part of my hippie mecca around Australia. And I never got sick of avocados. There are so many things you can do with them. They're incredible.
Yeah.
I love them.
Cut it in half, take out the stone, and eat both halves with lots of salt and pepper.
And vinegar. Well, we sometimes put balsamic vinegar and vinegar.
Balsamic vinegar. Soda crackers. You're plain basic soda cracker with lots of pepper and lots of avocado smashed on it.
I love it.
Yeah. Margemite. Yeah. Right.
So this show today was brought to you by avocado.
Right.
By avocado growers on 2 continents. Yeah. Right.
I know. I was like, I'm formulating a segue. Somehow I know that I have seen posted recipes to do with your loved one in dementia, things where the participation is still there. And I could really see just, slicing out, getting that stone out of the way and just participating together. There was actually a person that I served for a while. The husband had heard of me word of mouth, and I was a hired caregiver, and said major stroke, just, one side of the body, brain, digestive system no longer participates, in and out of hallucinations, but completely wonderfully lucid. I loved my person. I loved her. But there just wasn't the hunger anymore. And that happens with aging too. I don't know that that's going to happen with me, but that can happen in aging, where it's just like, I only eat because I know I have to. I only eat because I'm supposed to. The bottle says, swallow these with a meal. But I don't feel the hunger anymore. And so I would talk recipes with this person, and they told me the same recipe each time. And we talked about grinding up the chips, the potato chips, to sprinkle on top of this casserole. And as we talked, the food would go in. And I thought, I found that part of the brain that is going, yes. So even though Dawn method, in my mind, and do correct me, is primarily dementia focused, I think it would have, there's probably a lot in there that would have helped me and would have helped that husband in the case of just a major stroke. It's amazing that she survived, and she was wonderful. I mean, she gave me marriage advice. She knew perfectly well she'd had a stroke, and then would begin into a hallucination with no stopping, no change. Like the very next sentence had nothing to do with what was really going on. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I would wait for her to come back, but I would try to participate at her level. I was learning. I didn't know about the Dawn method, but Maury, you said, oh, could Judy come in too? And I'm going, Judy Cornish. It's like, can I have your autograph, please?
You want Maury's autograph.
I have your autograph in your book.
I did. I sent books. Yeah, that's right. I think really the Dawn method is just what I mostly try to do is teach people to recognize cognitive skills. And so it doesn't matter whether you're working with somebody who's experiencing dementia, and there's a very specific pattern to which cognitive skills we lose when we experience dementia. But one of my employees left and moved to Washington, and moved into a small town and began working with children and adults on the autistic spectrum. And she said the very first afternoon she went to work with her first client, it was a 21-year-old young man who'd never hugged anybody, had never reached out or ever initiated physical contact. And when she told him she had to leave, he reached out and asked for a hug and gave her a hug. And
wow.
And I think, it doesn't matter if I'm experiencing a left side stroke or dementia, or, I'm on the autism spectrum, or whatever it is. We just need to look at each other as human beings and say and think, which skills am I able to use? Which skills is this person able to use? And then you just meet them where they are. And people do that for us every day of our lives, right? Yes. They do. Every day people help me, like people, I'm always interacting with people who have better memory skills or better rational thinking skills or, better attention skills. And I interact with people who have, that are less adept in those areas. And I accommodate them, the other people accommodate me. That's just really what it means to be a gracious human being, is accept people for what their skills are, what their strengths are, and do your best. Interact. Be kind.
I love that you said recognizing. Yay, well, recognizing their cognitive skills, not, oh, this is what they're losing, or hang on to it because it's almost gone. It isn't like, what it sounds like. It's not so much labeling and levels, but
that doesn't help us.
Does that still function? Can I reach to that part of that person? I'm just thinking about a person who speaks fluently many languages and reverts to English, not their heart language, not what they grew up with, for my sake, but doesn't dummy down to me. Right. Like, speaks only English. So, that, Maury, I interrupted you because I was so excited about it.
No. That's a really important point. I think meeting people where they are is. I love that term. It's been said by many people over years, but like, how well do we do that? So I guess what I'm trying to do is always to focus on someone's abilities and strengths and play in that space, but also to do it on equal terms. Yeah. It's really important for me to not. Sometimes I do need to lead things. Sometimes initiation or to initiate certain things might not be part of a person's abilities that they retain. But what I'm trying to do is uncover that or reveal that. And at some point, and this is where Judy was very influential on the way I thought. And you changed the way I thought a lot, Judy, when we spoke. You talked about rational thought and intuitive thought. And what I realized was, and you pointed this out, was that I was playing in the intuitive space. And I kind of knew that intuitively, but I hadn't rationally realized it.
That's right.
And so that's really transformed the way I describe and think about what I do when I write about it. So, and a great example, I don't know if you have seen that recent post I did with Laurel dancing. Laurel is my elder buddy who passed away recently, and I wrote about it. And thank you, Christine, for posting about that. But you see Laurel there about four songs into old time music, and I'm trying to activate with music. So I don't use music all the time, but music is a great activator. And as Oliver Sacks said, music activates all parts of your brain. There's so many components that it ignites. Yeah. And so it activates people. But Laurel used to play the piano accordion. So music's really in her body. And you can see when I play with the tempo that she changes, she does big finishes. And pretty soon she's picking up social cues, comic cues, and emotional cues. And all those cues are still there. It's just, how do I reveal them or play with them or ignite them? And so I really, really began to think more about the intuitive space more often, and trying to drag people from. I think if we think about why people, I work with people that are rejecting social interaction. People that are largely in their rooms and won't come out, don't want to participate. And there's millions of reasons why people might do that as a response to either going into aged care or whether it's dementia. And I think that I always think, and Judy, you might have an opinion on this, I always think of dementia as it's kind of could be an existential crisis, like it's a crisis of nothing makes sense in the way that it once did. So I'm trying to provide a sense of familiarity in my tone and my manner and my approach that I know you. And they'll say, do I know you? And I say, I think we met a little while ago. I'm not sure. And I sit in the same space as them. So I'm not telling them what they learned. And I think that familiarity and that safety, it moves them from the old part of our brain where the amygdala is in fight or flight in that defense mode and brings it to the forward part of the brain. And so other things are revealed. I don't know, Judy, what do you think about that moving from the old brain to the new brain?
Yep, because what happens, and I'm probably grossly oversimplifying, and I hope I am, because I am not a neurologist, and I intend not to be one until I get.
That's on your CV, isn't it? Neurology.
Yeah, I wish. But okay, so in very simple terms, we have an amygdala, old brain, and my friend Priscilla reminded me early on. She said, Judy, never forget that the amygdala is screaming out, am I safe? 4 times a second from before birth until the moment you draw your last breath. It never stops. We're talking 4 times a second. Then, okay, so how does the human being ever cope with life? And the way we cope is we've got rational thinking skills. And what your rational thinking skills are doing is taking the very small amount of information that the corpus callosum allowed to pass from the intuitive thinking skills. Now, the intuitive thinking skills are inductive. That's your all the sensory information you run into. You don't have to work at it. It's whatever you can see, hear, taste, smell, touch. It's all coming in. That's intuitive thinking skills, unfiltered, no limit. Absolutely. Induction, all of it's coming in from birth until death, actually before birth. Okay, so then the corpus callosum isn't allowing information to go to the rational thinking skills. It's slowing it down. It's preventing. Now, it prevents because you don't want too much information hitting rational thinking, because the rational thinking for us humans is what it does is it takes the small amount of information it's fed, organizes it, deduces, comparing and contrasting, seeing cause and effect, seeing sequencing, prioritizing, deciding what's important. All your rational thinking skills is a toolbox, and it organizes information and answers the question 4 times a second and says, Yep, amygdala, you're safe. Yeah. ABC equals, yep, you're safe. Yeah, you're still safe. You're safe. So then what happens when somebody then begins to experience dementia? If it's something like Alzheimer's disease that's causing dementia, very likely the person is losing their memory skills first. Now, Alzheimer's disease, I think that's easy. The harder ones is when we're experiencing dementia, and the type of dementia we're experiencing is causing us to lose rational thinking skills first.
Yeah.
Now, that individual may have very good memory skills, but they aren't able to write the story, I am safe. And so you do get a lot of fight. And it's not just fight or flight. There's 4 stress responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
Fawn, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
4 Fs, the 4 Fs of stress. And this is mostly coming out of our latest research in social work. If you're now attending university to get a degree in social work, you're going to be taught not fight and flight, but the 4 Fs of stress. Okay.
What was the 4th one again?
Fawn.
And that's what I heard you say.
Yeah, fawn.
Yeah.
So fight is you're going
I'll physically demonstrate each one. You said them.
Yeah, the fists are up. Okay. Now flight means I'm out of here. No thought. It's just gone. Freeze is nothing. Everything shuts down.
I don't know what to do.
Don't know what to do. Right. But fawn is kind of like Stockholm syndrome, And which of these we flip into is going to depend upon earlier life experiences, personality, and recent events, and how at risk we feel in the moment right now. So the person who has deduced their rational thinking has told them they have no chance of survival. That person will go into fawn and begin to try to cooperate with whoever the aggressor is to survive. And these are old, you're right, this is old brain stuff. But, so when I begin to lose, let's say I'm experiencing dementia that's the result of FTD, or maybe a traumatic brain injury, a bad reaction to an anesthetic, Korsakoff syndrome, cardiovascular disease, any of these, I am most likely to lose rational thinking skills at least as quickly or sooner than my memory skills. Now, that means I'm less likely to get diagnosed soon. And that means I'm going to be exhibiting the greatest amount of my natural 4 F's of stress, my stress reactions. And part of the things that one of the key things that we lose when we lose our rational thinking skills is that word that Maury said. He said, I initiate. What does it take to initiate? So let's think about it. I'm, let's say I've begun to experience dementia. My husband wasn't able to care for me at home. The years have passed, and for whatever reason, I need to go live in a care facility. So there I am, and Maury hasn't arrived yet. I'm sitting in my room. And think about it. There's things that over my lifetime I have devised that I like to do. And this is my self-care. Let's say when the going gets rough, I get a cup of tea, right? I'm Canadian. Okay, so if anything, you need a little bit of time, you got to think something out. It's difficult. I'm going to get myself a nice hot cup of tea. Or maybe a person likes a hot bath. Or maybe a person likes to take a walk. When they start feeling stressed, they go for a walk. We all have these activities that are self-care. Now, if I'm experiencing dementia, if I've lost my memory skills, the day comes when I no longer recall not only how to make a cup of tea for myself, but also that I even like it.
Yeah.
I remember the day one of my clients forgot that every night before bed, she took a hot bath. And that was how she settled down, and that's how she would be relaxed and sleep well. And the day she forgot, we had to take over initiating. But initiation itself takes rational thinking. You have to be able to be sitting, here I am, I'm sitting in my room, Maury hasn't come yet. And I'm sitting there thinking, I just don't belong here. Nothing looks familiar. I don't recall how I arrived here. It's really scary. When I tried to leave, everybody got mad at me. So I'm just not going to leave the room. I'm going to stay put.
Yeah.
Now, what am I going to do? Well, I can't plan because I've lost my rational thinking skills. I can't anticipate. I can't see sequencing. I can't say to myself, okay, I feel at risk. I don't feel at home. Oh, I know. In the drawer over there, I have my favorite book, my little devotional book. And I'm going to just stand up right now, go over there, get my devotional out of the bedside table. And then I'm going to go over there and sit down in that easy chair. And I'm going to read my devotional and I'll feel better. I can't do that because I have lost the ability to sequence or to see cause and effect.
Cause and effect. Yeah. I mean, that's just such a picture.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So can you imagine having to live life without the ability to say, if I do this, then I'll feel better. And yet at the same time, the amygdala never stops screaming, am I safe? 4 times every second. That carries on. So this is why Maury's work is so important. You're initiating people, and what you do, you're bringing the things that, you've got to think about rational thinking. Think about rational thinking, those skills, what that lets us do. Let's see, if I've got rational thinking and memory skills, I make an excellent employee, right? I can be really productive. You tell me what you want, I'll remember it. I'll use my rational thinking skills and deduce the quickest, best way to do it, and then I'll do it over. I'll be really productive. Or I'll use software, and I'll get really good at solving problems for my employer. Or, you know, all of these activities of being a good employee and productive are rational thinking skills. I'm going to lose those to dementia. But what do I keep? What is my intuitive thinking? That's my ability to, with no effort at all, receive all sensory stimuli around me. All right, can I initiate it? Can I go get it? Can I find it? Plan on getting it later? Think about how to go there? No, I can't. I can't do any of that. But I am fully equipped to enjoy anything beautiful you bring to me. Here I am. You say you love me. You're my spouse, my children, my friends. You work in dementia care, and your job is to provide dementia care. I can't do it for myself. I'm fully equipped to enjoy everything in life. Beauty, companionship, positive emotions, all of that. I haven't lost any of that.
That's what I could see in the movie, the Laurel. I guess it was a documentary or a short segment, whatever it was that you showed was that she was giving back to you. She was letting you know, I'm ready. I'm ready. I can tell you that minor chord is about to resolve. And, you know, and she whoosh, you know, it's like you and and without her saying it, it's like you and I are on the same stage.
Attunement, I think, is the word that I like to use.
Yeah.
Attunement.
Doesn't take English.
We were completely in
language.
Say again?
We don't need verbal language.
I know. It's funny because everything I do is so instinctive, and then to go and write about it is a whole nother thing. But I'm trying to illuminate for others what I'm doing and how, like, it's really actually quite easy. I mean, I think that what you said about Laurel. So what happened was that Laurel's son Paul, used to come and film us together, because I would use music. I mean, you know, you talked about joy and being able to experience, you know, things intuitively. Music for some people isn't really important, you know, but the ukulele is a very small, bright instrument. It's not a barrier. It's very small, and it has a lovely tune. Well, it depends on how it's played. Yeah. And so I think when I come into a room, I use music to activate. I don't try and base everything around music. However, Laurel is very much a music-driven intervention. However, I'm testing her when I hit the minor chord, when it's resolving her. I'm changing the tempos of songs. I'm throwing in, you know, bup, and she'll respond to those. I lean in and she leans in with me. Yeah. And so I think it starts because when you go in and you strum and you sing a song, that person, their amygdala, I guess if they're sitting in loneliness or grief, you know, and I think it's grief a lot, is that the protective shield is up. The amygdala is ready to go, and they've had the experience of being yelled at for trying to leave. They don't know what to do. They can't move. They're frozen. Someone comes in with the ukulele and starts playing and smiles and says, "Hello, Laurel." You feel safe, and then you feel joy, and pretty soon you're on that treadmill. So yeah, it was filmed by Laurel's son. I've got about 40 minutes of footage with Laurel playing a game called cricket. We call it's not like baseball, but you use a bat and you hit the ball. And I was so worried she was going to belt me with it, but only because she didn't understand it in space. But with lots of music and her following me down the hallway saying, "Where's the boy?" And so I gave that footage to an advocacy group here called the Older Persons Advocacy Network, OPAN. They wanted to have some footage of my window therapy stuff that I was doing during COVID, but at that stage I didn't have any. So I gave them 10 minutes of footage with Paul's blessing, because Paul wants everyone to do what I'm doing. He wants more of that for people, for elders. And they edited that down to that beautiful 2-minute clip, and it really does capture what happened in that session. It's a beautiful. I'm very lucky to have that footage. I think we're blessed to be able to see, the work between two people. And I know it's me, but I think that there's a lot of people that are doing really good stuff. And the hardest thing to do in aged care is to get footage and to be allowed to film and to use it. I mean, there's a lot of boxes to check.
Boy,
so I've been very, very lucky that my 6 partner sites give me there's great trust in taking photographs, and that I will follow the procedures in getting permissions from everybody before I use them.
Yeah.
There's two things go ahead.
Every one of my staff, when I was writing my books, all of my staff wanted me to use their names. So, there's Heike and Sarah, and those are their real names. Not one of my clients' families would allow me to even dedicate the book to a client with their first name, and there's some really dear clients who everything I've written about came from my clients. Really, those are their books. The Dawn Method is theirs. And yet, because of stigma, I wasn't allowed to even use their first names. So, I wish I could have. But
I do try and ask people when I do get permission. So you're going to say something, Christine, but I do try and get permission to name. Sometimes I'll use initials, but it's really nice if you name. Like I read Laurel, Baz. I'm writing about Baz at the moment. They like him to be called Baz instead of Barry. It's a very Australian thing. But I did interrupt you, Christine. You wanted to say something.
Well, it went into a different direction for me, what you were just saying, because I try really hard. I will say gender, but I try really hard not to give any indicator. People know generally geographically where I am, but not to give any indicators of who that person was. But, I want to tell them all about that person and the situation. Every time I listen to you, I think of those people. And when people are going to be listening to this, because I'm always posting out. In fact, I received a message this morning from a person who lives just a few miles away saying, what do you have? Give me your website again. I just talked to a person who's just at wit's end with their own grandparents. And I'm so grateful, because this will be another one where I will go, dang, I remember when Judy and Maury were on the same screen and that was the topic. And I'll be able to send that out to someone. No one has time to scroll through every single episode of anybody's anything. But to be able to send one thing and go, even if you just go to the middle of it and listen on, just resources, links, contact information, something that sounds familiar, going, I didn't know, because we don't go running out in the streets with big signs saying, today, my loved one thought they were on fire, or last night they woke me up and started talking about things that I didn't know if it was a hallucination. I didn't know if I medicated them incorrectly. I didn't know if they bumped their head, that's how the night went. We don't do that. We keep privacy. And we also are kind of feeling like I don't want other people to know what I'm dealing with. I want to kind of have my normal side, or I don't want someone to criticize. They think you're not doing it right or whatever. The two things I wanted to make sure about was that I tell people who are listening to this in replay that Maury took, I don't have one, but it's the sort of thing that you'd buy at the store to write on the side of your van windows, we're going to state, or, champion this, or just married, or whatever it might be. Maury took that and he drew a circle, and then just a space away, he drew another circle on a window, the window of what I call the hallways, the places where there are rooms after rooms with people who are being looked after and kept safe. He made a little nose bridge in between. I think there might have been earpieces sticking out. That would be up to the creativity of the person. They could even add a nose and a little mustache if they'd like. And then he came right into it. And interacted with a person, perhaps they remembered him, possibly they did not, but there wasn't anything frightening about a head tilting back and forth and putting the eyes there. And here came the intuitive mimicking, putting the eyes up there too, for someone who's like, they don't even know who I am anymore. I've been there. It was many decades ago where I thought, why even go visit? It's like we don't exist, or all that happens is maybe some kicking from the wheelchair or something. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the training. I didn't have maturity to go, wait a minute, there might be a way.
But Christine, you know what it is? We don't have the skills, we don't have the training, but we don't have the knowledge. In the United States, we have separated. The generations live apart. I think every time I talk to a family, if I have two siblings, on Zoom or in the office, it takes less than 20 minutes before at least one of them says, yeah, but she's old, he's old, so shouldn't she be in a senior care community? And the answer is no. They ought to be in a family. Your family, their family. That's where we should be. The question, and so I'd say back to people, do you have children at home? Well, that's a 6-year-old. Shouldn't your 6-year-old be with other 6-year-olds in some kind of a community for 6-year-olds? Our children shouldn't be in their families. They should be in institutions for children, right? Because then you can keep them safe. And, this doesn't make sense. You say it about children, it doesn't make sense. The Brits did that for a couple hundred years, and it doesn't work well. You take your children.
What's that called? You're sending them away to a boarding school. There we go. Where everything is at their level. And they're all professionals, so they'll take care. Now, I'm on both sides as far as where does your person need to be, or where do I feel that I need to be? In a situation, maybe projecting in the future, or maybe if I'm able to rationally think through what's going on with me.
Here we sit. In America, and we're trying to talk to ourselves about whether it's appropriate or not for older people to live in senior communities. And, this wasn't something that humans talked about until recently.
Yeah.
Never questioned it. And there's a number of cultures, most cultures, here in the US, this is the culture, it's the great 200-year experiment of having the individual be primary over family. This is the first. You look at other cultures and you look at other countries, and they teach the children that children have a duty to the family. And here in America, we talk about pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, a tough love, right? Independence. We celebrate independence. We're all about the individual. And it's an experiment. It's not what has been common in human history. The family is common in human history. And, right now I'm talking with people in Singapore. And a whole lot of the work I have built into the courses of the Dawn Method are completely inappropriate. It's a given. Well, of course it's my parents. Of course my parents are living with me. If somebody becomes ill enough that they must go live in a hospital or have rehab care, well, then we're going to work as a family and make it happen. We will make sure we can do it if we possibly can. But that's not considered normal for people who are your elders. What's normal is, in other cultures, is that we're a family. Some of us are children. Some of us are adults. Some of us are elders. And, if I'm an adult, I'm going to look after the children. I'm going to look after the elders. I'm going to look after whoever needs looking after. And here in America, we don't get the opportunity to learn how. And so we're at a loss, and we feel badly because we don't recognize what people need. And you can't, I kind of feel a lot of times I'll say to families, don't feel guilty. We just, birth. How many of us could step up to the plate and help somebody give birth? Not many of us, because birth became medical. How many of us could step up to the plate and help somebody live the last few days of life? Not many of us, because that's become medical in this country. And Australia, I'll let you speak to that, Maury, but we've lost touch with the beginning of life and the end of life.
Yeah.
And having done so, we don't know how to support our elders. And the thing that breaks my heart the most, and I'm sorry, I'm doing too much talking. You guys have to override me. But here's the deal. It just breaks my heart when I hear somebody say, my mom is experiencing dementia and it's the long goodbye. And, she's dying to me twice. And I go to see her and she doesn't even know who I am. And I feel like saying, okay, we know that. We know if your parent or your loved one is experiencing dementia, we know that if they don't lose those memory skills at the beginning, they will during the journey. They're going to lose their memory skills. Now, have you lost your memory skills? No. All right. As you walk the journey together, your loved one is going to begin to repeat things. Because if they're losing their memory, what are they going to repeat? They will repeat what is the most important to them. So you're going to hear some stories over and over again. And every one of us has some life experiences and some relationships that have shaped us. And there are stories that we will begin to tell repeatedly because those stories tell us and our companions, our loved ones, who we are. So when my clients started to lose their memory skills and become more and more forgetful, and they started to repeat things, I am listening and I am using the opportunity to memorize. I memorize my clients' stories and I memorize their stories with their words and their phrases because spoken language comes from music, not from thought. It comes from music. And music, the melody to listen to a melody activates many parts of the brain, but to listen to a familiar phrase does the same.
Yes,
now,
absolutely.
My clients, they're going to tell me stuff over and over and over again. It doesn't bother me at all because I need practice. It's going to take me a while to memorize their stories and their words. And then when they don't know them anymore, I become the memory keeper. Yes. I become the storyteller. So I'll never forget the first, one of my clients, and I would have loved to dedicate my book to her in her name very specifically, but we spent 8 years together. And I don't have a close family. I never knew my grandparents or aunts or uncles. I barely knew my parents. And so I spent 8 years with her, and she had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's a decade before I met her. She was very forgetful when we began to spend time together. But the last few months of her life, I remember going to the adult family home where she was living. And I walked in, there's a new caregiver. And she says, "Who are you here to see?" And I said, "Oh, I'm here to see Mary. I know the way." And she says, "What, Mary? That's a waste of time. She hasn't spoken in a week. She won't know who you are." And I said, "That's okay. I know who I am and I know who she is." And she said, "Oh, you should come see some of these other clients. They're really lonely. They'd appreciate some, but Mary, she's not even going to open her eyes. She's in fetal position. She doesn't eat, really it's a waste of time." And I went into Mary's room and I got a chair and I pulled the chair up so that I could see Mary's face. And if she were to open her eyes, she would see mine. And I didn't touch her because she doesn't know who I am. And if she doesn't know who I am, how dare I touch her, reach out and touch her? But I sat down where she could see me and I said, Mary is Judy. I'm your dear friend, Judy. You and me, we love each other. Oh, let me tell you. Let's see. We got to know each other 8 years ago. It was a little more than 8 years ago. Oh, you were out watering your tomatoes. I came across the street and I started to tell her our memories. And after a minute or two, one eye opened and she kind of looked at me like she couldn't believe what she heard. And I stayed there, and over a period of about a half an hour, I went from our stories to her stories. And I said, Mary, that you told me all about meeting your husband. Oh, it was wonderful. You told me. And then I started telling her stories. I told her about her children, her husband, her church, her life. By the time I had to leave after half an hour, she had been laughing, smiling. She was holding my hands. She puckered up for a kiss before I left. When we lose the ability through losing rational thinking skills, we lose the ability to use language, verbal language, not nonverbal, verbal. We lose the ability to initiate activities on our own. We lose our memory skills. We lose knowledge of who we were, everything that we just assume is available to know forever. All of that goes. But our ability to receive never goes. And if you love somebody who's experiencing dementia and you don't use your memory skills on their behalf and become their storyteller, their memory keeper, you will lose them, but they will lose themselves as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. That is, right. Yeah.
The onus is on us.
The power, and the power of the familiar when you ignite, because let's face it, people living in that space and not surrounded by it, there's nothing that's familiar anymore.
Right.
It's not their home. It's a room full of strangers when they go to meals, and then you come in with something familiar and you start talking about the tomatoes, straight away. The familiar, and I think that's certainly what I'm trying to ignite, and music is part of that. But also, I use lots of different tools to get there.
But Mary, the thing you do so beautifully, life does not need to be all serious. There is no reason why we can't have fun.
And mutual mischief is what I call it, Judy. I try to create opportunities for mutual mischief, if it's appropriate. But most people do want a bit of mischief.
Yeah. There's no reason to not have fun. And this whole thing of having care facilities that came out of the 1920s, and, nursing home, it started as boarding houses when, families were breaking down and we had tremendous economic stress, and people would just take in boarders, and a lot of people who were elderly ended up on the street. And so you ended up with elderly boarders who needed support and care, and it became nursing homes. And somehow we ended up in this habitual assumption that if you're other than quote unquote normal, then you're sick. If you're sick, you need to be in a hospital. If you're in a hospital, no fun. Everybody's got to be really careful. You've got to be really serious. And there,
there's a lot of risk out there.
A lot of risk. Yeah.
Wow. Why is it only fun at children's hospitals?
Well, that's because we catch others.
Well, they need to still have a chance to be children. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out the age where you're not supposed to
when he's
have fun and distractions.
Play is meant to go throughout our entire life, and it's and I think the greatest, for me, one of the forms that I like the most, and just thinking about, you're talking about familiar phrases, is banter. So for my father, as my father rapidly progressed down the path of vascular dementia, he was what we call, I don't use the term wandering, but people would be familiar with that. I use the term searching. He was searching for familiarity, I think, searching for comfort. I would walk with him, and he was a storyteller. So he was known for you'd say, "Where are you going, Dad?" And he'd say, "Pretty good, thanks." "Dad, where are you going?" "Up on the roof to mow the lawn." So I would recount those phrases with him as we walked. I would tell the stories. We had a pet turkey when we were kids called Din Din. Now, Din Din is obviously short for dinner.
Dinner.
We didn't know when he named our pet turkey Din Din that that's what was going to happen. And Din Din went missing. We came home and the gate was open and Din Din was gone. The dog was there. The the turtle was there. The chickens were there, but Din Din had escaped. So we put signs around. Years later, I'm about 17 years old. We find out from my father at the table what happened to Din Din.
Yeah.
Now I'm Maury Jr., right? I'm known as Little Maury. That's been my name. So Dad says, well, I said, what happened to Din Din? He said, well, what was his name? And I literally went, Din Din. No, you didn't. He fed Din Din to us as kids one Christmas in probably, I don't know, was it been 1968 or something, 67. So I said, where did you do that? And I asked all these questions, and he did it down at Fred Keating's place, 2 doors down. So I got up, and Dad said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to see Fred Keating. And I knock on the door. Fred Keating opened and said, oh, g'day, young Maury, how are you? I said, I've got a bone to pick with you. And he hung his head. And he said, I knew this day would come. He knew that one day I would confront him about cooking our turkey. So that story is a family anecdote. It lives on in our family to the point we don't give Poppy your pets because he'll feed them to you. So when my father walked and was looking for familiarity, I would talk to him about Din Din the turkey, and he would stop and he'd say, oh, he looked up at me. I said, don't describe it to me, Dad. Yeah. I would walk and I would talk about whatever happened to Maria Brown. Now, Maria Brown was the woman that broke his heart when he was a young man. And we would talk about the stories. And as you said, Judy, using his phrases, using his stories, I was just recounting the stories he sat on the end of the bed. Dad never read one story to us from a book in his life. Instead, he told us stories about growing up on a farm with 12 kids, losing his father age 3 and what he used to do on the farm. So my dad was a storyteller. And that's probably where I get my love for oral history and oral traditions from. Well, it definitely is. Yeah. And so, Judy, it's really interesting that you talk about that familiarity and the musicality of language and the phraseology of it. And it's a pattern. And I think that one of the things that we do see when we're with someone that's experiencing dementia, they lose the ability to initiate. But if they were a dancer and if you pick them up and you hold them in a position and you move, bang, they're off. Right. People can't talk, but they can sing. It's a pattern, and it's a joyful pattern.
It is.
Judy, I'm going to say what I should have said. I'm going to ask each of you to give your contact information because it's wonderful to hear all this. But if somebody wants more and they want to know more about you. So my big announcement is that I am putting on, and it's on the ticker at the bottom of the screen, I'm putting on an in-person event in about 3 months. I don't know how close you can get with this, but I'm calling it Convergence, and it's in October. And the reason why I'm doing it is that my husband said, you should have a conference. Okay. And as I've talked to people about it, each time their endorphins go up and they're like, oh, you should have so-and-so. Oh, I could come and do this. So I'm doing it right here in Independence, and you're not too very far away, Judy. Maury, I can't do that. I can't do that to you. The jet lag alone would do you in. But it's just an opportunity for people to come together. There's more, and there's going to be more on the website, which is convergence-experience.com. That's my little plug right there. Convergence-experience.com. Maury, what about you? When people want to see some of those videos or they want to get in contact with you, where should they go?
I deal pretty much through LinkedIn. There are contact details there, but you have to unearth them to get closer to me. What I might do, though, that clip of Laurel is available on Vimeo. I might send you that link.
Good. I'll post it when I send it.
And you can actually download it. So, and if people like to use it or look at it or analyze it, that's what it's there for, to, like to share. So pretty much contact me via LinkedIn. I'm active on it a lot. So, you can get me through there. And I've got posts and things I've written. I try to write original content, as much as I can and share the stories. I've got one coming out next week. It's a little bit about involving families, staff, and the elders in a bit of mischief. And that features Baz. And also I've got, I think maybe you both have helped vote for me. I next week find out if about the Golden Pineapple Awards.
Yeah.
I've been nominated, for those that don't know, as Person of the Year for my work in diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I'm the only person in 7 categories from aged care. So it's an important advocacy role.
That is
so the whole dementia, loneliness, isolation category, you're like the only one in that category. There's a lot of other categories that you would think of, but I think you should win.
Oh, well, you know, there's the thing about it is that everyone should win because all the people that have been nominated do exceptionally big-hearted work, you know, and that just being nominated and standing alongside those people is a win already.
Yeah.
But having said that, there is no one from aged care represented in the diversity inclusion. I mean, you know, we focus a lot on gender, on race, religion. We need to do that, but our elders, we're not doing enough.
Yeah.
Society
and
was
elders,
talking about,
it's
and you're talking
everything.
about.
It's
We're
all
not
those
doing enough.
categories together.
We got to do better. They're our elders. They're here. They are here for us to learn from. They hold our history, our knowledge, how we got here, why we interpret things the way we do. Yeah. And that's why I use the term elder. You know, because
they are us then. Yeah.
We're all elders in the making, as a good friend of mine says.
Elders in the making. Yeah. Very good.
Nicole Smith says that. She's someone you should talk to. But anyway, how do you contact Judy?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, I'm on LinkedIn, but the Dawn Method website. So it's the Dawn Method. Dawn is DAWN, and it stands for Dementia and Alzheimer's Wellbeing Network. But actually, you can probably it used to be you could Google Judy and dementia, and I came up, but I don't know. I haven't checked. But the Dawn Method it's everything's on the website there. We've got training for families as well as for professionals. I actually do a lot more work outside of the United States than I do in. So
yeah, funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes, you were mentioning Singapore. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm off to a baseball game with the family.
Yeah, can see that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess we need to know what things, if one day I come in at you with the ukulele and you're sitting in a strange room, do I talk baseball to you? Is that what I do?
No, definitely singing. In fact, I did a thing like a year and a half ago of what would be my favorite things if I was in a community, if I was placed myself into a community that would provide for my needs, what had to be there. And that was just an open-ended question. And my own answer included karaoke. I have never participated in karaoke, but boy, do I love to feel like I'm up on a stage and feel like, you know, I'm all in there with a crowd of people and we're all going to sing the last verse of the song together. I probably would do very well in public houses or pubs, you know, kind of a thing. One more round. I don't play any instruments at all, but I definitely love to sing along. So that's, you can come at me that way. And I used to be a school teacher, so you could play along with me on my school teacher talk. Ooh, hey, sing us out. You're ready. Sing us out. That'll be the end.
There we are.
Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money, maybe ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song side by side.